Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Flex and Joe. I'm back with another ES NQ and VIX market recap. Today we're going to be going over Monday, October 28th. So let's start on the VIX. See, the VIX, where it's closed on Friday the 25th and where it opened was a large gap down. Going into the open, we were CBC candle by candle short, which is a bullish indicator. However, we were pushing into this 10-minute 200, and you can see we were just kind of hovering on in the pre-market. So it was a little bit cautious for the longs there off of the open, even though we were candle by candle short. And then you can see initially there was a pop-up here on the open, right? If we go over to ES, you'll see that immediately at the 6 p.m. open, there was a sizable gap up. It continued to push up, and then it just stayed right, in this area. Couldn't break and sustain over this pivot. And it was CBC long going into the open, but into resistance, right? And you'll see initially there was a push down, which when VIX opened a couple minutes later, that's where you see the pop-up on VIX, right? And then lastly, you have NQ, same thing. Little pop up here, gap up, it pushes, then it continues to push, and it cannot break over the same pivot around the same time, this 1230 area, right? So we know this is a key resistance area, and this area is acting as supply. Candle by candle actually flips short going into the open and then continues to dump. So if we look at the three of them together, and we'll zoom in so it's easier to see, here's what we're looking at, right? Candle by candle is long, but going into resistance on ES. We flipped short here on NQ and we just shoved down, right? And we shoved down into the golden zone of this gap area, right? And when you get your first candle by candle flip back long, where VIX flips short and ES flips long, you do get this move, but it moves right back into the opening print on ES. They cannot get above the opening print, and you can see this is where the bears are sustaining price action. And then you get CBC flip short with a long flip here on VIX, all at the same time, right? So anywhere through here where you're getting the flips on VIX, but you're not getting the corresponding flips, here is a bullish flip, but you don't get a bearish flip. You just kind of have to like wait these out. But when you get the full confirmation, you get all three of them in alignment here. This ends up being a great short on both ES and NQ, right? And then from there, it's really just a choppy day, like just gross, just moving down. We have a lot going on this week. Non-farm payroll is Friday. You have all of the Mag 7 outside of Netflix have their earnings this week. So that's Microsoft, that's Apple, that's Google, that's Meta, right? So everything is reporting. AMD had reporting as well. I think a few others. So big earnings week. Non-farm payroll is Friday. So it's just a choppy price action. And you just have to understand the prevailing trend, right? That's the great thing about the clouds. The clouds are red. The prevailing trend is down. You do get this push up into VWAP here on ES, but NQ is noticeably weaker. And right, once we make this push up out of this demand of this gap zone, the way I drew it, you don't get a reclaim of the opening print, and it comes back down, and now you're basing in this gap zone to make a push lower, and it finally fills the gap on the last candle of the day here on NQ. The last push here on the VIX goes into the golden zone, which tells me that the VIX is likely to move higher. And then ES hits the 50% portion of its gap, right? So just moving lower and consistently bouncing off of it, but not able to gain any traction back long, which again leads me to believe that we have further downside coming to fill the gap here down to 58.43. So biggest takeaway from today is really just monitoring the VIX, the NQ, and the ES markets, and making sure that any trades that are taken align with all three of them, having the same sentiment, right? So you want CBC long, green arrows for ES and NQ, and then you want bearish, the gray arrows, or red if you use red candles, or short on VIX, right, which would be market bullish. You do get a few of those flips, but really they just don't give you any continuation, and those flips into bearish EMAs should be taken with caution, right? Because you can see, yes, there was some buying here, it pops up, it's a small scalp, but ultimately it flushes, it fails. The price action is moving down, and you can just see again the same thing on ES, right? This is not a clean day, and you really have no momentum, no continuation after this initial move here. And this one here, and I will say too, as far as ES goes, this flip here after the or blow fake out breakout was a decent trade to take. I mean, even if you entered in here on the pullback around 70s, 72s, you still were able to get 7-8 points, which is $300 to $400 a contract, right, on ES. Same thing buying this pullback here around the 60s, 65s. all the way up to when it peaks here. And honestly, this candle probably stop people out. So let's go to this one here. It's a good 40-point move, about 800 bucks, but it's going right into the bearish EMAs, right? So you have to understand that both VWAP and the 10-minute 20 are scale triggers, and you want to be scaling or, closing out the position entirely. And then, not be afraid to, if it continues going and it's going to come back in base, you can re-enter with better risk as it's predefined, right? But no continuation. And really, if you look at the VIX chart all by itself, especially off of the open here, you get that flush down, right? It pops back up. So when this had popped up initially, and then it pulls back, right? And it moves down. See how the VIX moved down, but so did the market. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and then the VIX pops up, pushes. There's some more further downside, it puts in the orb high, it comes back down, and you'll see that it's just sort of bouncing off this 10-minute 200, right, which is also the hourly 3450 EMA cloud. And then it's just holding this area, what I call the belly button, just because the way it's designed, just a bunch of little circles right here. It's holding this mid orb area, right, which is bullish. So if this is looking so bullish, and you got your 10-minute EMAs trying to cross and run, this looking bullish is overall bearish for the market, and you can tell ultimately this is just a pullback, right? This is just a pullback. There's no, increases in volume here. It's just sustained moving price up, and then when they hit that opening print, that's why I always mark that opening print. And if I didn't have the fib there, you'd see I have a study that automatically draws it on all three of them for that same reason. So I know where we opened and where the day started. Okay, so once you push out of the orb high, you come back down, you retest the EMAs, and it still closes like this. If this is all bullish, this push here was much more bearish on ES than it was on NQ. You see NQ, you barely break low a day. ES, you really flush hard. All right, so NQ comparatively to pre-market had already moved down much more than ES had. But play the price action, follow the price action, and then also use the VIX to add additional confluence to your trades. All right, let me know if you have any questions down below. Appreciate you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next recap.